War is, unfortunately, the most painful phenomenon in human history. Innocent people die, homes are destroyed, and sometimes entire societies vanish. However, throughout history, humanity has never given up on fighting and causing harm to one another. Today, as always, we will attempt to evaluate the economic outlook of the week by examining the underlying economic realities of the recent phenomenon of war from a broader perspective. Let's get started. As you know, every weekend, we analyze the commodity market, international markets, American stock markets, and cryptocurrencies. For the viewers of this channel, the topic of war is not foreign, as we have been following its development, unfortunately. I wish I had been wrong, and the increasing phenomenon of war did not manifest itself as distressing events around the world, even to the point of mentioning world wars. However, as you know, there has been a pattern throughout history. When the leading countries' affairs are in economic trouble, first, there are exchange rate wars against their resurgent rivals, followed by trade wars, and eventually hot wars. I have discussed that this is how it has unfolded historically since the Roman Empire, and I've emphasized that we have reached the final stages of trade wars, and heading towards the outbreak of hot wars because the United States, as the leading nation, feels that its economic supremacy is threatened, and it cannot afford the risk of losing its global economic leadership. Recent developments unfortunately reinforce this thesis. Everyone may interpret Hamas' recent attack on Israel and Israel's severe response and endless oppression as a long-standing tension between two countries or two communities, but we've explained that there is much more behind it. Those who believed that America, especially under Biden, was going to bring peace were greatly disappointed. We observed that America was actually fanning the flames of war through its actions, from its provocative behaviors to the deployment of American ships in the eastern Mediterranean, and there was no shortage of other countries following suit. Unfortunately, these recent developments indicate that war is set to continue, evolving and spreading to different fronts in the near future. This is, of course, very sad and harbors dramatic developments. When I mention these, I don't expect them to happen at the slightest provocation, but rather, I expect it to be a prolonged process. It won't happen in a day or two, maybe not even in weeks or months. It will be an extended process. This is because prolonged wars have always served the interests of major powers. Just as I explained that the war in Ukraine wouldn't end immediately because it was beneficial for Russia with rising energy prices, it was also beneficial for America to continue supporting the war there to consolidate its allies in the world. I've explained this in great detail on numerous occasions. I bring up such phenomena because when you look at the big picture, it was clear that war was coming. It's just a matter of where it will erupt and on which fronts. I believe it won't be limited to these, unfortunately. These developments will continue in this direction, and we need to be prepared, make our investments accordingly, and organize our lives accordingly. Therefore, in recent days, the demand for risky instruments, the riskiest instruments, has started to decline even more, and while there may be temporary fluctuations, behavior will change, especially as the concept of war slowly settles in people's minds. They will become more conservative, more protective, both as individuals and communities, and in market behaviors. Having noted this, let's not drag on. After summarizing the big picture, let's see what's happening. One last thing about the big picture. This morning, there was even a tweet saying that the reason for the war is not this but that. The news that China has overtaken the euro in international transfers has dropped like a bomb. Yes, the sole reserve currency is under threat. Therefore, to keep its economic power and counter the loss it has suffered in the economy, it is trying to maintain its strength with arms and power. You may ask what this has to do with it, but I want to share a graph related to the big picture. Look at this. The TLT is a 20-year U.S. Treasury ETF, which means it's the ETF version of the 20-year U.S. Treasury bond. If you want to buy this bond directly from the stock exchange to invest in international stock markets with U.S. Treasuries, when interest rates go down, its price goes up. Look, it was trading around 180 in September 2020, and it was even closer to 155, 21 months ago in December 2021, which is today, it's trading at around $83. In other words, in just 2 years, half of the money, 50%, has disappeared. What does this mean? When you invest in U.S. Treasuries, if you want to realize it today, half of your money has disappeared. I've been talking about this for a while. I wanted to show this graph again, especially when I couldn't get the point across in detail. This is what's happening in international markets. You might say, I haven't bought American bonds, I've invested my dollars in interest. However, this bond determines the benchmark for the whole world, and as long as central banks around the world do business with the dollar, they constantly invest in American bonds to prevent their money from being idle. Therefore, they are already financing America, and this keeps the dollar standing. However, recently, there has been a surge in harshly rising interest rates, and the system has turned into a dual box. China, Russia, and other countries are no longer buying American bonds or even excluding them, leading to the belief that bond prices will continue to fall and interest rates will rise. This, in turn, poses a major problem for the financial system today. In fact, it is an issue that is being ignored or pushed aside with wars. In reality, there is a massive financial issue in the system, and we are explaining the moves to eliminate this problem or to give power to the dollar through war.